welcome to ISU Media Message. I'm Bob Lindemeyer, Associate Director of the Media Resources Center, and we're here to talk about another one of the number of fine films and videotapes that have been produced and not normally able to be seen by the wider audience, by the television audience. My guest today is Mary Ann Evans, who's Director of the Program for Women in Science and Engineering here at Iowa State, actually serving the entire state, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the program. When was it started? What's its focus?
Well, the program was started in 1986 by a group of women on the ISU campus who were concerned about the underrepresentation of women students and faculty members in the sciences and engineering, at Iowa State. As we began to work on programs, it was clear that we had to start working at the pre-college level, and so our mission has expanded to a lot of projects across the state of Iowa.
Okay. One of the projects early on in the program, several years ago, was the development of this videotape, and it was put together to show to what age audience are we looking at?
Actually, we thought we were targeting middle school students, but we've been told by teachers that it's appropriate all the way from about 6th grade up through the 12th grade.
All right. That's a good step for us to introduce the tape. We'll talk more with Mary Ann Evans when you finish looking at A Job Like Mine.
Engineers are the people who take the dreams of other people and make them into reality. Let's take, for example, a grocery store. Not so long ago, you'd go to the checkout counter and the person there would have to punch in all the prices by hand, and it would take a very long time. Then someone said, well, what if we used a barcode on the package, and that could tell us how much the item cost and what the item was and how much of it was left in stock. And then we could have all that information in the same place. Now someone can just take a can of beans and run it across the scanner. That's something you can do with a job like mine.
Well, you know, people don't always realize how much scientists and engineers affect our everyday lives. And the machines that we use, the food we eat, even the clothes we wear have all been affected by science. But what's hard to understand is that only 1/4 of the scientists and less than 5% of the engineers in the United States are female. But I think that once people realize the advantages offered by these careers, those numbers are bound to start evening out.
My job has a lot of variety in it. I don't ever have 2 days alike. There's always some challenge. It may not be on a day-to-day basis, but at least week to week, there are some challenges. This particular factory puts out radios, aircraft radios. The radio that I work on has both a military and a commercial version. The commercial version fits in the biz jets. A lot of the heads of states will use small biz jets that carry 15, 20 people. The part of the radio that I actually am working on the design work on is what they call the control card in the receiver transmitter. That thing, it works a lot like the computer. In other words, it tells the radio what it can and can't do. Now, when I actually put the concept down on what we call schematic, I have a draftsperson make up an official drawing. Then they have to lay out the circuit board, the actual lines that go on the piece of what looks like plastic. I have to supervise that, approve it. I have to decide which parts are going to go on that. Once you have those items in hand, a board is built up by a lab technician. And then it goes out to be manufactured. And once it's being manufactured, then many times you are the person that gets called and said, this thing isn't within the specification you said. You said it wouldn't go over 4 volts and I'm getting 6 out of it. What's wrong? So I have to decide if it's a problem with the design, if it's a problem with the way they're testing it, if it's the way somebody put it together, or maybe somehow a wrong part got in there. So there's a lot of evaluation, analysis and evaluation that goes along with that. I feel real honored to have a radio that's in an airplane that belongs to the heads of state, you know. They apparently feel it's excellent, which of course I do too. I have 2 children. My oldest is a junior at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. And my son is a junior in high school. My son plans to follow in my footsteps, namely be an electrical engineer. He also is very active in sports. He's a basketball player, plays in the tennis team. I think they're pretty proud of the fact that I'm an electrical engineer. My son enjoys it partly because he's going to be an engineer and he can ask me questions and I can answer them. They can ask me math questions and I can answer the math questions. He can ask me about what it's like to be an engineer and I can answer them. Electrical engineering is an excellent field for being able to go just about any place you want. Because if you get a background in electrical engineering, you can be in something like I am, circuit design, radios. You can be working for the light and power company. You can be working in a factory, setting up machines, working with robotics. There are just an infinite number of possibilities.
If somebody, a client, a farmer out there had a problem, let's say late in the growing season, he's taken a ride out to a cornfield and he sees that part of it is starting to break off, the stalks are breaking and falling over, which makes it very difficult for combining. There's enough happening that he's very concerned about it and he wants to know what is happening and what he can do about it at that point. So I would go out with the county extension director. We go out there, meet the farmer out there in the field somewhere. I would begin by asking him a lot of questions as to the history of the crop. And if you can ask the right questions and get them to tell you things, he can certainly point you in the right direction as to what the problem is. Almost like a doctor talking to a patient, trying to diagnose what's wrong with him. But is it a different number?
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a lot of variety difference this year, so I think that this kind of weather is...
There's one number that's fuller season. In the field that's planted at 35,000, we have 18 row ears.
Really?
Yes.
Are they about this length?
I'd say
Maybe a little shorter?
right in here.
I'm asking him what hybrid it is, when he planted it, what were the conditions when he planted it, what were the conditions during the growing season, and what kind of fertilizer program he had on it, what kind of weed stress he had on it. That's kind of the neat thing about agriculture is that you use so many different disciplines to get at the answer. Science, you're looking at biology, you're looking at chemistry, you're looking at meteorology. It's very much a puzzle as far as troubleshooting. And since I did have the heavy science in high school and college, that made it a lot easier for me. Other areas that I have gotten involved in since, I like to travel. In some of my travels, I got involved with scuba diving. I really enjoy that. It's a sport that takes you away from everything else because you have to be concentrating on the environment you're dealing with at the time. I mean, you're in an alien environment. So it gives me a chance to go down to some of the islands in the Caribbean. At any rate, getting into something that was totally unrelated to agriculture was something I really enjoyed.
Hi, Carol. How you doing?
I'm sure that when I appeared at a dealer's office or on a farmer's farm with the county agent for the first time and they saw who I was, there was some surprise. I would say rather than discrimination, I would say it was much more a factor of well, let's wait and see what she has to say. And if it made sense to them, that established my credibility with them.
The place where a person would normally run into what an actuary does would be in paying the premiums for their life insurance or their homeowner's insurance or their auto insurance, because actuaries are basically the people who set the rates. They're the ones who make the calculations and decide that 25-year-olds should pay this and that 60-year-olds should pay something different. In order to become an actuary, I studied mathematics at the University of Nebraska. That was my major subject. And I also had a minor in actuarial science. And my actuarial science courses covered things like statistics, numerical analysis, and life contingencies. One of the things that I enjoy very much about my job is the chance to interact with different people. I have several people who work for me, and I work with different people in the company and in the department. I've been lucky enough that I was able to arrange to work shorter hours with my employer, and because of that, I've been able to devote a lot more time to my family than I would otherwise have been able to do. Our twins started soccer, and their dad is the coach. My husband is a generalist, and he has been able to function in a lot of different areas. So we have basically focused on my career in terms of deciding whether we would stay or whether we would move. Being an actuary is a job that's really in demand for students who are coming out of the university. When I came out, they were crying for actuaries, and they still are. There's a great demand for them. Most insurance actuaries or consulting actuaries who have their own businesses would be considered very highly paid and often would have compensation in excess of $75,000 or even greater than that.
As a TV meteorologist, it's my job to find out what the weather is going to be in our area, make my own forecast, and then present it to the viewers who are watching the television and present it graphically so that they can see exactly what I'm talking about. When I come into work, about the first thing that I do is look at the National Weather Service wire and find out what's been going on around the region so that I can look to the west and say that, well, this might be coming our way. And then I look at the maps. We get maps that come in 24 hours a day. And once I do that, I make that forecast and I put in the specifics, the temperatures, winds, what direction the wind is going to be from. I just take the important things and emphasize what I want through my graphics that I make and present that to the viewers on air. When I do the weather, I have to talk with the anchors a little bit first. We call it chat time before we get into weather. And so I chat with them, and then I go out into the chroma key area. It's what we call the chroma key area. It's just a blue screen. And the camera shoots me, and whenever it sees the blue screen, mechanically somehow they put in the weather map behind me, or whatever graphic I choose they will put behind me. We come in usually at about 12:30 because there's so much information with the weather that you have to go through just to make sure that you can tell the public really what's going on. But then if the last show that you do comes on at 10 o'clock, the earliest you'll get off is 10:30. Even though we do have a lot of strange hours with the weather, I do have some time off. And with my time off, I especially love outdoor activities. And horseback riding has to be my favorite. When I grew up on the farm, we always had horses. So when I was a kid, I was probably riding by the time I was a year old. Even probably before that, I'd been set on the horse. So I loved horses ever since I was a kid. And I loved them so much I wanted to work with them and started doing a little bit of training. And it was when I was training that I had an accident and became a paraplegic. The horse reared up and went over backwards and fell on top of me and folded me in half, and I broke my back then. My accident didn't stop me from loving the horses. As soon as I could, I got right back up on the horse because horses are such beautiful animals. I couldn't stay away from them, so I continue to ride as much as I can in my free time. I've been with Don now for a little over a year and have been trying to get him to like horses also. I have a degree, a BS in meteorology. And to get a BS in meteorology, you have to go through a lot of math and a lot of physics. I think our most important function in TV is we tell people about severe weather, tornadoes especially. That's real important to people. Hopefully we can say we save lives. TV meteorology is exciting because every day you come in and it's something new. And that's the challenge.
I'm a faculty member. I've been here for almost 13 years. As a member of the faculty, I teach. I teach both undergraduate students as well as graduate students. I was hired as a dairy microbiologist, someone who would be concentrating in organisms that are important to the dairy industry and to the processing of dairy products. The class that I teach is a laboratory class in microbiology, food microbiology. And that would be a 2 or 3 hour class in the afternoon. So I would be meeting with students at a very informal level. And I also do research. My doing research really means that I direct graduate students in various projects. One of the research areas that I'm interested in is fermentation. And by that we mean using microorganisms to produce a valuable product from some other material. I grew up in New York State and went to school, both grammar school and high school in New York. And it was really, I thought, very important to have as much background as possible at each stage so that I could go any direction I wanted to go in. My husband is also on the faculty at Iowa State. He's in chemical engineering, and he and I came to the university at the same time, so we both got jobs here at the same time. We've got 3 children. Our son is now 14. We have a daughter who's 9 and another daughter who's almost a year and a half old. Yeah, our 9-year-old is very much of a sports enthusiast, and this year she's just finishing 3rd grade and was the first year that the girls started playing softball. Almost all the time we're all there. Sometimes our son is off doing something of his own things, but the rest of us usually manage to make it to most games.
We've always been close enough that, you know, I've always been in the biological applications of chemical engineering, and so she's my resident microbiologist. I took the biochemistry, the microbiology, I just asked her.
Well, I think it's nice that she's there because she knows a lot about science, and so when I have science homework, she helps me study a lot.
The students that we train are the people then who go out and work in the food industry as the quality control managers or the supervisors of a food production or processing plant. I really like working with students. I really enjoy teaching. I really like being a faculty member.
We work as a liaison between IBM and customers in meeting their needs for computer automation. And computer automation can be anything from computerizing their payroll or accounts payable to something very sophisticated like scanning and barcoding in their inventory as it comes in the back door so they immediately know what they have.
Many times my customers have to communicate with other locations, and one of Lisa's customers may be one of the locations one of my customers may have to communicate with that doesn't have a computer yet. And we may have to work together to make sure that what Lisa's trying to get her people to do is in line with what the people are already doing in my location.
We might come up with a customer need in which they need a new office automation system. Office automation would mean word processing and electronic mail and those types of functions. And oftentimes I'll come back to the office and work with another marketing rep and develop a customer presentation that we can demonstrate how our products will do the things they want them to do.
I got my bachelor in electrical engineering. It really relied more heavily on math and science than do many of the other engineering degrees. As well as taking the technical courses, it's necessary. You'll die if you don't keep abreast with what's happening in the world and working on your communication skills.
I ended up in industrial engineering. When I graduated, I had several Fortune 500 companies come to the campus and interview right there. And based on those interviews, then I was offered plant visitations. I went everywhere from San Diego to New York State, looking at prospective companies, which was really a wonderful time in my life because I'd never done that much traveling before.
When I'm not working here, I belong to the Des Moines Community Symphony Orchestra. That is one of the high points. I've been involved with music all my life, and I really enjoy participating in that group. I'm involved with a youth group, and I also sing in choir. So there's a lot of things that I continue with, a lot of activities, interests I developed in high school and college, and I continue now that I'm working.
My husband and I have a lot of hobbies that we like to do together, one of which is RAGBRAI, the annual bike ride across Iowa, and it lasts 7 days, and my husband Doug had been doing this for some time, and when we first started dating, he invited me to go along, and after we rode across Iowa for 7 days together, I guess we knew we could make it. You know, he respects my job as being just as important as his in terms of my personal development.
I think it's a real plus having a wife that's a professional and college educated, you know, in any relationship, especially when it comes to understanding what the other goes through in an 8 to 5 workday, you know, on Monday through Friday, and the pressures that we have on each other outside the home. And I think it's a real plus when one understands what the other might be going through in a busy time.
The hardest part about finding a job in electrical engineering is deciding what you want to be. You can be anything from a design engineer, which means you spend most of your time probably using a computer, paper, pencil. You could be involved in the manufacture of these products, or you can be involved in the marketing. So once you decide what you want to do, your opportunities are endless.
The age we're living in is a high technology society, and it's going to remain that way for a long time. Engineers are playing a big part in America's future, and women engineers will be a big part of that.
Studies have shown that there is a shortage of competent workers in science and engineering, and these fields really do need help. So anyone, male or female, who has a good background in the sciences should have no problem building a career in science and engineering.
I especially was attracted to engineering because it has a good salary. In fact, as a bachelor's degree person, it's probably one of the best.
Just learning about my customers and all the different businesses that they have and all the different ways that they use computer technology, it's really exciting.
But it's very important to get as much math and as much science in high school as someone can if they are interested in going into some sort of science field.
So once you decide what you want to do, your opportunities are endless.
Well, there it is, a job like mine. And my guest today is Marianne Evans, Director of the Women in Science and Engineering program here at Iowa State. Marianne, how is the videotape being used?
It's being used primarily in schools by teachers who want to show their students what engineers and scientists actually do on the job. I think, especially with engineering, students don't have the foggiest idea what engineers actually do.
Right. Or if they do, they think engineers are all males, right?
Right, that's the other piece of it. So when we developed the video, we had two purposes. One was to show all students what scientists and engineers do, and the second purpose was to provide non-traditional role models for girls.
And have you had some response? Has an evaluation been run with it? Is it doing some good out there?
We have heard from a lot of teachers that they've used it, overused it, and they'd like us to make another one featuring some other scientists and engineers.
Okay. Son of Job Like Mine. No, I should say daughter of Job Like Mine, right?
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the program. Now, it's headquartered here at Iowa State. Where does the funding come from for your program?
The funding comes from wherever we can get it.
Okay.
We get some support from the university. We raise money from the colleges and scientists on campus to support some programs. We write grants. We get a large grant every year from the Iowa Department of Education. And we also do some corporate and individual fundraising.
Let's see if we can't do a little commercial here. We'll put up the name of the program and the address and phone number. And if people would like to write in, have you got a brochure about the program?
Certainly,
or
we
something?
would love to provide information to interested people.
Okay, so it's Women in Science and Engineering at 210 Marston Hall, Iowa State University, 50011, and or they could call 294-9964.
Right.
Okay, good. There's our commercial. Tell me about some of the programs that are happening currently. What sort of activities Women in Science and Engineering doing?
Well, this semester we have 2 career conferences on campus. One will be later in March, and it will be for girls in grades 9 through 12. We have already accepted 500 registrations, and we have turned away 480 people from that conference. So
Is that a one-day event?
it's a one-day event, yes.
What sort of programming happens?
We bring in a national speaker who would be a prominent female scientist or engineer. We bring in many women role models who will talk in small groups about what their jobs are like. Students will take a tour of a campus laboratory, and I think that that's primarily what happens with the older groups.
Have you scheduled a major speaker for the upcoming conference? Who's it
Don't
gonna
ask
be?
me that question, I
You
can't
don't
remember.
have the answer to that one yet, okay. How about some of the ones you've had in the past? Have we had one of the female astronauts, for example? Are there people at that level that you're bringing in?
We have had a female astronaut.
Good.
This year, one of the women whose name escapes me right now is a pilot with NASA, and she's flying her own plane up to participate in the
To the
program.
conference.
She
Excellent.
was actually an ISU alum.
I think of all the people in the videotape, the one I find the most fun to hear tell about her career is Pam Dale, the meteorologist. And it's sort of a nice double whammy there to find out not only is she this scientist, but she also was striking a blow for a physically handicapped person. Pam Dale at WOI.
She's a powerful role model.
Yes. Well, let's hope that we have an opportunity perhaps sometime in the future to produce that second tape in the series. And thanks for being with me tonight. My guest has been Mary Ann Evans, Director of the Program for Women in Science and Engineering here at Iowa State. This is the ISU Media Message, and I hope you'll join us here again next week.